Hola and welcome to a new episode of the Roofless Dog and Pony Show, brought to you by Roofless Painters. In each episode, we discuss what we are about to paint and why we are going to paint it. We introduce the theme of the painting collection we're getting ready to work on. We talk about the genesis of the concept, its contemporary context, and we reflect on the form it may take on our paintings. We also bring up stylistic and historical references as inspiration in the form of painting examples from the past and also contemporary time. Our episodes are from live, messy, and unvarnished, just like our paintings. I am Julio Panisello, the Dream Alchemist at Roofless Painters, an art school and gallery for nomads and misfits. And you can find all the episodes in video format on our Instagram page and our YouTube channel. And please, if you watch them, follow us, subscribe, drop a like, a comment. And also you can find the episodes as podcasts on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and other popular podcast platforms. So now you can listen to us while you're walking or driving, or you want to tune out from this crazy world, or if you want to fall asleep, we are the best podcast for that. So we're going to go ahead and introduce the subject, the theme. The title of the collection is PORTRAITO. We're going to have to practice a little bit more. Okay, yes. So let me just see if I can get access to the slides. PORTRAITO. So last week on the news, we heard about the manufacturer or the owner of the brand, Mr. Potato Head and Mrs. Potato Head. They announced that they decided to drop the Mr. and the Mrs. from the brand. So in the new boxes that are coming up in stores, in toy stores, or I guess online, the word Mr. and Mrs. will not be featured. And the company decided that in order to make the toy this American classic toy more inclusive to this new generation of clients, I guess, they just thought that it was better to drop the gender element of the brand and to make it more inclusive. And also they decided to put more of the tiny pieces inside of the box, so boys and girls and everyone in between who want to buy the toy, they will be able to create many more identities. And we thought this was just amazing, how clever. They're probably going to make much more money. More people are going to be interested in getting the toy. So obviously what happened afterward was that a lot of people got extremely upset and threatened, and they believe that making this classic toy, this very old toy, less binary and more neutral, more gender neutral, was an attempt to rewrite the rules. And that's why the controversy spilled over the news. And here we are again in the middle of another culture war. So we're just kind of like not going to that department. Obviously, we're thrilled and happy of this move. We think this is an incredibly creative toy that involves artistic decisions, and we couldn't be happier that now it's more inclusive. And the word Mr. and Mrs. It's just not on the box. So we wanted to do something about it, and this week we have learned a lot of things about the toy. We learned, and that's the reason why we brought this image, we learned that the toy, let me see if I have, we brought an image of one of the original Potato Head kits or boxes. And hold on one second, let me see if I can find it. Yes. So the toy actually was designed or created in the early 1940s by someone who decided to design these little tiny pieces, metallic pieces, that were actually, with a little pin, they were actually able to be pinned on different fruits and vegetables. The original Mr. Potato Head, it was called Funny Face Kit, I guess. That was the before it was bought by the actual brand. And this is the on the image or on the box, there are examples of the different kinds of vegetables that you could use, like real vegetables. You could use the vegetables, and then you could just pin whatever elements that they were in the box. But the box and the toy didn't come with the actual plastic potato. It was just you got the tools, you got the pieces, and you would just grab any kind of like vegetables that you would have at home, and you would just create little figurines or little figures. So at the beginning we thought that the reason why the company phased out or incorporated the plastic potato was because we thought there were a lot of accidents by kids, that they would just end up eating the fruit or the carrot along with the metallic pieces with the prong. And we thought that that was the reason why they stopped that. But actually, we learned that the toy was extremely controversial because during World War II, the food rationing, and in the recent memory for most of Americans of the struggles to find food, created this idea that this was a waste. This toy, what it caused was a waste of food, and people just didn't like that. So they thought that this toy was considered irresponsible and wasteful, and a lot of toy companies, they rejected the creator's idea. This was invented or created by George Lemur. It was a Brooklyn-born toy inventor, and then he just took it to different places, but they didn't want to buy it just because they thought it was controversial. So very interesting. He finally found a company, Hasbro, which is the company that still owns Potato Head, Hasselfeld Brothers. And they bought the royalties, and then they started creating not only the Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head, but many different versions of that. So we thought, coming from a series of collections based on portraiture, we did 3 portraits back to back, and then we did animal portraits. It would be a good idea to actually switch gears and do a still life. And what we thought was to go back to the original idea of Mr. Potato Head, in which people would use a real vegetable and then bring images of plastic pieces of part of the kit, the Mr. Potato Head like a toy, and create our own still life with a real vegetable and plastic pieces, either on the vegetable or on the table. But the idea would be to do sort of like an assemblage of live painting with collaged images in the same scene. So it was kind of like, well, potatoes have been like really popular subject matters for a very long time, and we want to talk about artists that have used potatoes in their paintings and try to provide examples of this subject matter in paintings with different styles to perhaps inspire and motivate the reason why you should join this webinar. We've painted potatoes like many times. The last one was Veggie Jesus, a little bit controversial this past Christmas, but we also did a collection called For the Love of Potatoes. We also got inspired by Van Gogh's potatoes, and we did a still life with a bunch of potatoes. So potatoes have been in our paintings in the past years, will be in our paintings moving forward, and this is another take on potatoes being in paintings. The ultimate Mr. Potato Head of all time, Archimboldo, the Renaissance Italian painter who is famous for doing the four seasons, in which he depicted a human figure made out of the fruits and vegetables and flowers of each season. So Archimboldo was famous for other pieces and paintings, but no one really cared about what he did except for this extremely famous four-season portraits. These are actually self-portraits. So the four paintings that he did are paintings of himself made out of the themes of each of the seasons. This is the fall season. And we know there are potatoes there, although we just seem not to be able to find them. But we are sure that one of the surfaces that makes his self-portrait is a potato. We thought the nose was a potato, but when we zoomed in, it's actually a pear. The spring is all flowers, and the winter it's all branches and wood. So this is the summer and the fall are obviously harvest seasons, are the ones with the most fruits and vegetables. And we wanted to bring this example to just show that fruits and vegetables have been part of paintings for centuries. There was a fascination during Renaissance time about the new vegetables and fruits that they would come from the new worlds, and people thought that they were luxurious items, and they wanted to get their hands on the potatoes. Potatoes are originally from the Inca Empire. So at the same time during the Renaissance, there was also a fascination for riddles and for puzzles. So put all this together, this fascination for secret messages, and also this new influx of food from other countries or continents. And then you have an example of Archimboldo creating the original potato head, literally. Archimboldo, some scholars, I don't know who those people were, but obviously they were nuts, no pun intended. Some scholars believe that Archimboldo was actually not mentally stable, and he ended up creating these paintings just because he was not mentally well, which obviously that was not the case. He was extremely creative, and he was a court painter, so he did make paintings of I think 4 emperors or members of the royal family. So he was not crazy, and these paintings are in the Louvre, and we've seen these paintings live pre-pandemic time, and they're not very big and they're not very bright, but they're so charming. And when we saw these paintings, they were in a hallway, so not featured very much in a predominant space in the Louvre, but who knows where they're going to be at when life goes back to possibly normal. Anyhow, so from the Renaissance to contemporary times, and I'm just gonna we're gonna bring some images of contemporary painters. Let me see if I can find something. never mind. So we found this painter. Let me see if I can just find. Yeah, so this is a painting by Judy Palermo. She's a contemporary artist, and she lives and works in Twin Cities, Minnesota, and she does a lot of plein air painting, a lot of live painting. She has this wonderful painting of Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head, and this is an example of why we should not disregard subjects that may not feel highbrow. We're gonna do this collection of paintings to kind of like encapsulate or document the time that we're in, that we live, and then perhaps a few years from now we can go back and maybe just say, yeah, that's the time when finally the potato head became a less binary toy, and more children were happy, and we couldn't find any forums or discussions of children that got traumatized by Mr. Potato Head or Mrs. Potato Head. But we would love to find out if there are any adults that have any stories about these toys actually confronting their own identity. It would be really interesting to find out if that is something that has happened before. This is we brought a painting. There's this artist from Puerto Rico, Jose Lerma. He's an artist that uses visual language to illustrate the rise and fall of powerful historical figures. He takes inspiration from episodes of Puerto Rico's wars, and sometimes he also focuses on portraying old celebrities or figures that have historical significance. We brought an example of a painting titled Potato Gave, painted in 2016, which is a monochromatic collage that shows a combination of different parts. It almost feels like it's collaged. Blocked out hair, a gigantic nose, and a single mouth, a smaller mouth. The effect is of precisely putting together a figure or an identity by several parts that may not look like they match. So we feel that this could be another good example of creating an identity out of different parts. I'm going to go to a sculpture right now. This is an artist that we found, a ceramic artist. His name is Jack Earl, and he is a contemporary ceramic artist, and he lives and works in Ohio, and he draws inspiration from the place where he lives to create pieces with meticulous craftsmanship and astute details, to where you could smell the air, hear the silence, or swat the flies. That's how he describes his work. Although his works hint at highly personal, intellectual, and narrative themes in an almost unsettling manner, Earl is, quote, a self-described anti-intellectual who shuns the art world, end quote. He's known particularly, and that's another reason why we brought this artist and his body of work through an example of one of the pieces. He's known particularly for using his trademark format, the dos a dos, translated back to back. Quote, this art form is like a book with two stories. The two seemingly incongruent images prompt the viewer to fill in the conceptual gap through poetic speculation. Essentially, it's an assemblage of two separate elements combined together to create a new narrative, and in this case, a new identity. So this piece, this ceramic sculpture, it's titled Mrs. Potato Head. And by the way, if you're listening to the podcast, you can watch and see all the images of the pieces on the video in our YouTube channel. And we put a link in all the podcast descriptions so you can access that and see all the images. So, so we thought this could be also related to the idea of combining different pieces and creating a new identity. There's more that we found really fascinating, but we'll just talk about it during the webinar. And this is another painter that we found. The name of the painter is Leah Solnier. Leah Solnier is a humorist, surrealist, oil painter, and portraitist whose versatility knows no bounds. You know that this has been written by her. Her art is laced with expressions of humor, the macabre, and elements of surprise. Look for the convergence, another example of what we're trying to achieve with this painting collection. The word convergence of the absurd with the rational. In our case, it would be the life or the natural or nature with the person-made, with artificial, with the plastic. The role of machines and the role of people and the curious appearance of animals in unusual surroundings. Combination of two completely different worlds. This painting by Leah Solnier, it's titled Misfit Potato, and it's what we're trying to do or achieve essentially. It's just a painting of a potato with pieces of the toy, either by addition or subtraction added to it in a completely neutral, we should say Renaissance-like, or rather Baroque background, because there's nothing behind it. So another example of that. Let me see. This is a very strange but also very interesting painting by an artist from James Martin, contemporary artist. This painting is titled Secret of Two Potatoes. The painting features a potato, and the potato is there are some attachments to this potato. Let's put it this way. First of all, the potato is sitting on a miniature chair. So it's a tiny chair with gold legs. The potato, it looks like a swivel chair. The potato is on the seat of the chair, and then there's the head of a man sticking out from one end of the potato, and from the other end it just looks like a cigarette that it's exploding, and something else attached to the cigarette. Like, it looks like it's one of those things that you use to beat eggs. This would be interesting to actually use for a critique session and see what all of us would see differently. Well, the cigarette is, burning, and the man has like a very happy expression. Secret of Two Potatoes. This is a little bit far from our idea of creating this combination of the natural world with the artificial person-made or human-made world, but still we feel like it's a good example of this passion or this drive by artists to mix together things that apparently they seem not to make sense, but they do make sense on the paintings. So, and we love this little painting. It's so beautiful. This is a Japanese potato pile princess done in 2015. Let's talk about this artist, Tomio. I'm sorry, that was the gallery. Keisuke Yamamoto, a Japanese artist born in 1979, contemporary artist. He is a multidisciplinary artist who makes drawings and paintings, though he favors sculpture made with food. And essentially, that's why we love this artist. His best known works feature plant and fairy motifs in compositions that at times resemble dense forest. This is an interesting sentence. For these works, Yamamoto tries to include both a sense of rising and of bottomlessness. The idea of like two different worlds, rising and bottomlessness. We have to kind of like think about what this really means, but because of this magical forest, perhaps it means the life on the ground versus the life on the sky. Who knows? That there's a fairy involved, so we're thinking little creatures that live hidden in one of these layers of reality. Yamamoto would appropriate and transform common objects like matchsticks and dining tables. Again, the combination of different objects. So by this point, and hopefully we're going to wrap this up really soon, but you are hopefully trying to visualize this idea of combining, and that's why we feel like Potato Head, the toy Potato Head, it's not just an amazing vintage American toy. It's a brilliant way to open up artistic possibilities to any children. It seems like a harmless piece of a harmless toy, but as artists, seeing that we are piecing together elements that adult artists have used to create images or concepts in which different worlds juxtapose and mix together. Playing with a potato head as a child could really be the beginning of an art career. How about that? The beginning of an art career. Let's give our children more potato heads, especially now that they are less binary. So, and finally, I have two paintings of potatoes, and that's it. No outer worlds. Just we can't pass on potato paintings. I'm sorry. This is just a simple potato still life. Heritage. It's titled Matthew Hopkins is a contemporary American painter who grew up on Long Island, spent his summers in the Thousand Islands, and has since settled in between. His schooling includes the Rochester blah blah blah. So yeah, he just kind of like writes about his education. His paintings in both watercolor and oil have been exhibited and honored in numerous regional and national exhibitions. Okay, so this obviously he wrote this himself, but we remember now the reason why we brought this, because this collection of paintings would be the combination of a classic still life, perfect, a classic still life. So yes, choose a potato, choose the bell pepper, a carrot, sweet potato, an apple, an orange, anything that's in our fridge. Let's kind of like tie these up together with the fact that it's been 1 year that we've been our movements have been restricted, so perhaps this could be a good opportunity to kind of like continue documenting the fact that we're doing a still life with materials that are at hand and we haven't eaten yet. And let's paint a classic still life with that fruit or vegetable. And then what we will do is in the shared folder, we will bring images of plastic pieces inside of Potato Head's toy box. So eyes, arms, ears, mouths, mustache, glasses. We're compiling a series of images of parts that are sold on eBay. You can imagine there are a lot of like people who are, and we're back. They're passionate about collecting things related to the history of the potato head toy. So we're going to bring a series of components or plastic pieces. And as painters, what we're going to do is we're going to try to play with the concept of combining a classic still life and either attaching plastic pieces onto the classic still life, or just kind of like scattering the pieces on the table or whatever surface that we're using for the still life. So we hope you join us. Again, this is going to be a still life collection of paintings combining a classic approach to painting in the form of a classic still life. We brought this other example to show you. This is a hyper-realistic painter by a different artist and with a different point of view. Portrait of a Potato. You can just it reminds us of a painting by Charlotte Tarantola that she did when we did the collection of Veggie Jesus paintings, anthropomorphic vegetables that we had around our house or in our fridge. So we're gonna take on the still life premise by featuring one piece of vegetable or fruit in our still life, and then tiny plastic pieces from inside the potato head toy box that we're gonna gather from sellers on eBay that are selling a series of like tiny pieces, mustaches, purses, arms, and pipes and all kinds of stuff, and we'll just have to put together somehow in our painting. And it's going to be not only an observational exercise but also an exercise in creating an image with two given sources. So it's just going to be a little bit more than just using our observational skills. It'll be about using our interpretation and recreational skills, how about that, in order to make the painting. So sign up on our website, rooflesspainters.com. We'll have the webinar up. You can pre-register now. We're going to send an email to our subscribers. And if you're not on our list, please go to our website and add your email. So we'll just share more information in the email about it. The webinar is every Friday at 11 a.m. Pacific time. We have people joining us from different time zones. We have an encore webinar on Monday night, so you can also join that to continue working on it. And then we have like 2 studio time sessions during the week. So it's open to anyone. We're welcoming everyone who wants to play with us, and we hope you found this entertaining and interesting, and let's see what happens with the pieces. All right, bye everyone.